Hello YouTube, this is a video on my Smith and Wesson SD9 2.0. This is technically the third generation within the offerings that Smith and Wesson made. Typically you'd have the Sigma, the SD9VE, the value enhanced model, and then the 2.0 model as seen here. Basically, you know, I owned both the SD9VE and the SD40VE, and those weren't terrible guns. Aesthetically, they were great. My biggest gripe was the trigger and the slide lock lever. You know, and so years went by. I sold mine before Apex came out with the trigger kit, so I have no experience with that. However, I've heard a lot of people have had pretty good experiences swapping out the trigger with their SD9VE to get a better trigger pull, because there's a whole spring kit that comes with it, so it lightens the pull weight. And they also have a flat-faced trigger as well as the curved trigger. Furthermore, there's also another company, Galloway Precision, has a trigger. I'm not sure if they have a trigger kit, but they do sell springs. I haven't dove deep into there since I have a 2.0. However, their triggers, just the trigger alone, if you're going to retain all the springs, they have a flat face trigger with a little shoe in there that runs like 25 bucks, but it's going to basically decrease, I guess, the creep, but it's not going to take away the overall tension from your SD9VE. So that being said, when I saw that they were coming out with the Gen 2, I kind of looked it over, looked at the slide. I like the deeper slide serration cuts that they have there. Both, well, obviously it's unloaded, but very deep slide serrations, both front and rear. So provides for a pretty positive purchase when racking the slide. The sights on your SD9VE as well as the SD2.0, SD9 2.0 are interchangeable with the M&P series of pistols. However, I believe that's where the commonality stops. They do make claims on like the Gen 1s that supposedly the Galloway Precision trigger kits, the triggers can go into those as well, because I guess the trigger systems are kind of similar on the Gen 1 M&P, but again, that's out of my expertise. I would further investigate that if that's something that you were interested in doing, and upgrading your SD9VE to kind of get it to kind of where this is. One of the cool things is when this first hit the market, it came in at a price lower than the existing SD9VEs that were in stock online and at most stores. I got mine on sale for like $265 or $275, but now the prices have steadily increased. I think it's hovering around $299 at most places, and then obviously depending on your retailer of preference as well as your state and taxes, probably, you know, hikes up to about $350 or so. That being said, you know, when you're paying about $350 for something like this, if you are in a state or you're getting it from a retailer or a local gun store, now it's competing against the Glock 19 clones. And basically the AR-15 and the Glock 19 clones on the market dominate the entire market. Honestly, on paper, I wouldn't advise this as a preference of yours if you are shopping around. It's a great pistol. It's very accurate. It feels great in the hand. I do like this new trigger, but some of the downsides to it are the aftermarket part support is pretty limited. There are a couple of companies out there that make some accessories and stuff for the SD9VE, which will cross over into this. There is the NDZ factory base plate. There is also the NDZ little rear slide plate here as well. They come in a variety of colors if you guys want to accessorize them, and I'm sure there's some other odds and ends, but other than that, it basically, it's heavily limited. There is an option from Apex where they have a threaded barrel that is back in stock. However, that runs about $230, which is like three-fourths the cost of this gun. So compared to something like, the lower end entry level Glock 19 clones, you can get a barrel for about sometimes $70, $100. It'll be threaded, with the PSA stuff. I mean, you can customize the slide, the barrel. There is a whole host of things that you could get into. My big thing is I got out of the Glock 17 and Glock 19 game a long time ago. I just didn't really like them. It's not that they were bad. They were incredibly, reliable. The 17 was accurate in my hand. I had a Gen 4 Glock 19 and the finger grooves it was not comfortable for me. I mean, I don't have huge hands, but it just was not comfortable in the hand. The trigger guard undercut there, excuse me, just wasn't deep enough. And I didn't want to have to fiddle fuck around with it and modify it to get it to fit my hand. There's also videos where guys are like, well, you gotta hold it a certain way, and that'll make it accurate. And I don't want to have to form fit myself to a gun. I want to be able to pull out of the box, lube it up, load it, shoot it, and have it be accurate right off the bat. So that's not something I wanted to pursue. I originally sold my SD9VE and my SD40VE because of the trigger. They were good guns, they were accurate, but that long, heavy trigger pull that it had, just at that point, it turned that pistol for me, or those two pistols for me, into more of like just a backpack gun for camping, or a truck gun, something that I genuinely did not care about because I did not enjoy the trigger. I mean, you can fire off a couple of magazines in a row, but if you ever did a burn down thing where you're shooting maybe 100, 200, 250 rounds and it's just ba 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 ba, and you're churning dirt, you do feel the finger fatigue, and that excessive kind of long double action style of trigger that was a really long, heavy pull just didn't lend itself to any inherent accuracy in my hands. Although there's people that are incredibly accurate with theirs, it's not something that I preferred. So personal preference. So I ditched them before Apex came out with their trigger kits, and hence why I have no experience with the Apex trigger kits. I just know that it's a product that's out there, as well as the Galloway Precision and stuff like that. But the Gen 2, as you guys can see here, it's a little bit spongy, like that, just a teeny bit spongy, but the reset's not too bad. Comes out a little bit, and I thought that extra travel would bother me right to there, but while firing rapidly, while firing slow and controlled, I honestly did not notice it. It felt pretty good. When these did first come out, some guys were complaining about there being some issues with the fire control group inside of the grip module here being an issue. Sometimes they get false resets or something. I don't know if they were just short stroking the trigger and they just weren't used to a sweeping trigger. I've had plenty of pistols where you kind of had to come out a little bit further. So for me, I didn't notice it, but no breakages. I'm at about 350 rounds with mine, and shockingly accurate. I was not expecting to have the accuracy that I have out of this. Hence why I slapped a light on there. And I know that's like putting lipstick on a pig, putting a fucking tiara light on a budget pistol like this. But what spurred all of this, one, this caught my eye. I was like, well, fuck, that trigger does look a lot better. Maybe I'll think about it. Well, my state ended up flirting with the idea of capacity limit laws all over again. So it's just constantly this threat from my state. So while I was online, a guy on a forum had these limited 10-round capacity magazines. There's only 5 here. The rest are all standard capacity. And one of the parts in the law that they're writing is that your concealed carry gun is limited to 10 rounds. So this takes off, the 5.7 carry gun. This takes off some of the other standard capacity pistols out of my rotation, because now I wouldn't be able to legally carry it. If I used it in a self-defense situation, I got to toss the fucking magazine and have a 10 rounder there. I mean, it's, if I'm defending my life, I'm honestly not thinking about all of this is what I could do to hide it from them. Unfortunately, because I have a family and I do abide by the law, it would be to where I'd have to start carrying something, like a limited capacity magazine or my other carry gun, Rock Island Armory Officer Model 1911, Smith and Wesson Bodyguard, things like that would play well with that new law. And I do agree. I do not support these gun laws in any way, shape, or form. However, to maintain my freedom, my gun rights, and stay with my family, as well as keep my dog alive, I got to play ball. So I have to kind of abide by that. So that's what spurred this. Is I found these. They were like $10 a piece. That's a killer deal. When these basically, before this guy came out, these magazines, both the limited capacity and then the standard capacity, which is 16 rounds, when they were for sale before the Gen 2 came out, I mean, they were going as low as $20, sometimes $16 or $18. Nobody gave a shit about them. The minute this was teased of coming out, these did spike in price. They kind of went up to like 22, 25, and now they're at a fat and solid, like anywhere from $29 or $27. But what I'm more realistically seeing for your standard capacity magazine is anywhere from $30 to $35 or even $36 on some of the big retailer sites like Mag Shack, Gun Mag Warehouse, all those places. I'm sure there's maybe an obscure place that sells these and is just clearing inventory because they're not hot sellers, but it's kind of a bummer. And when we look at the, kind of comparison between either this pistol or the SD9VE versus the Glock 19 clones, you can throw a rock, anywhere you live and hit a sporting goods store where they're going to sell Glock 19 mags. These aren't as common, but secondly, the inherent cost. I can get a Glock 19, especially just a polymer, Magpul version, magazine for, $20. And then if you buy them used from people or at a pawn shop or something, you can get them as cheap as like $10 a piece, standard capacity. So with the commonality of those magazines and with the price point, it is a much better endeavor to entertain the Glock 19 pistol over something like this. I just like weird fringe, kind of budget stuff that like works for me, that is slightly different. I don't know why, I didn't retain my Glock 17. I think I was just bored of it and it wasn't my jam. I do still have a Glock 20 and a Glock 21, as seen with the magazine over there. However, that's probably the only Glocks that I'll entertain. Everything else 9mm is gone. So that's why I go with this. And most of my other 9mm are metal framed 9mm. It's just what I prefer. I don't typically carry them. This was something that I wanted a cheap, inexpensive, carry gun that I could have limited capacity magazines that didn't break the bank at the time, which then spurred the purchase here. But it wouldn't necessarily be something I would entertain if I was starting from scratch. On paper, I don't know if this is going to be a good deal for you simply because of the cost to here, the lack of the logistics part supply for this pistol, aftermarket stuff. There's some things out there, but nowhere near what you could get for a Glock 19 or Glock 19 clone. Now, speaking of the Glock 19 clones, barrels and slides and things like that everywhere. I mean, there are dozens and upon dozens of sites online. Sometimes your local store will have stuff. This does have a threaded barrel that is offered by Apex. However, it is $230. That is 3/4 the cost of this gun. And it's just... If it was about 100, maybe 120, I could bite the bullet. I don't shoot suppressed. I don't currently have a suppressor. If I had a little bit of property and I was trying to be considerate with my neighbors, I would fully, invest in something like that. But right now, my current situation, it's not something I'm interested in. So that being said, with that threaded barrel, well, it would be cool to customize. It's just that would be a poor investment, again, on paper for this budget pistol. It takes it out of the realm of a budget pistol. You can find holsters now. Back with when the SD9VE and SD40VE were out, Kydex wasn't, it was there, but it wasn't as popular. You didn't have retailers everywhere online making stuff, and you were kind of limited because nobody really gave a shit about the SD9VE. So you could get one custom made, but it wasn't like you just go online and find them anywhere. Now, there's a company, Voodoo Armory on Etsy, was pretty cool. I chatted with that guy, made a custom holster for it. And I believe he even really used an SD9 2.0 to mold this. As you can see, the slide serrations do match. I was curious about that fitment when I was emailing him. I was just like, hey man, you know, is the slide, you know, how tight's it going to be, you know, but realistically this and the SD9VE are going to be pretty damn close. So it's not really an issue. Plus holsters, especially Kydex ones, are going to bite onto the light anyhow. So if it's a light bearing pistol, which really, you know, that's what this jam's all about. But I still didn't know if the upper section was going to differ at all and throw him off. So I just, you know, did a courtesy message to him and was just like, is this going to be a problem? He's like, oh no, not at all, man. So pretty cool company. You know, average pricing for what he offered. I thought it was pretty fair for something that, you know, I wanted an inside waistband holster for something like this. It was going to be like custom. Tons of colors, tons of, you know, other accessory shit that you can get on there. Came with a metal clip. So instead of the plastic ones, you know, a couple of different options here. But overall, still pretty cool. But yeah, ultimately it's a great pistol if you find yourself, you know, presented with a, you know, an on sale purchase. Typically, these will come with just one single magazine. So if you kind of look at this like printer ink and printers, you're going to get fucked on the magazines for sure. It's just, I have yet to find something where these are dirt cheap again. So then something tempting would be, you know, a Pro Mag magazine. Those hover around $16. However, I did fuck with one because it held, I think, 17 or 18 rounds, had a little extended base plate. And the problem is that I filed a little bit. I could not get it to seat and stay seated under fire. So I ended up chucking it in the fuck it bucket, and just, I'll eventually circle back to it because I'm sure I need to either take off material on the top or the bottom, but it would not stay locked in. Hand cycling, I was getting some issues. And again, I know it's Pro Mag, but I was hoping that, you know, it was like, this might be that cheaper option where I could get that instead of these guys and, you know, at least build a bulk of magazines. And, you know, it may work in your SD9VE, but with the SD9 2.0, even though the magazines are identical, the Pro Mag just did not play well. So I'll eventually get into that. Pro Mag also makes a drum for these, if that's your jam. That's actually for my Franken AR9. That's a Beretta 92 drum, but you could rock a drum and make this a ghetto blaster if you chose. But, you know, Pro Mag is hit and miss. And since they basically use the tower, I believe this is just a straight up magazine, and they clamp this around so that this is the feeding portion, but it's not like this was made completely separate as a proprietary part. I believe this is just straight up their 92 FS magazine, and because why else would you have this base right here? So I think they just put it on there, hogged out that, and then just allow this to feed through a standard magazine that they do sell. I believe it would be much the same for the you know, the SD9 style of magazine that they have, but it's an option. Sometimes with Pro Mag, it's hit and miss. Most of the time it's a miss, but sometimes you get a banger of a deal. Other than that, it's fairly accurate, and I know I'm rambling about just cost and shit like that and throwing out things, but you know, if I was to do this all over again, I'd probably still do it. It's an inexpensive polymer frame gun. I got it for a pretty good deal. Other than the magazines, that would be my only complaint. I would like to see Smith and Wesson take down this slide lock lever to basically this section right here and delete this second half, because there's no reason for this longer half to be, you know, there. It just, for me at least, on my SD40VE, this, because of the overall length, can peel out and then accidentally engage as you're firing, and then prematurely lock the slide or keep it from locking back. So kind of a bummer, but it'd be cool if they eventually offered something that would do that. And I haven't looked online to see if any companies do sell something that's a reduced size, but you would still have this kind of walled off area. So if that bothers you aesthetically, yeah, that makes sense. Other than that, like I say, 350 rounds with this pistol. Everything's been flawless. In fact, the barrel ramp is so polished, it fed these absolute piece of shit Ammo Inc. Sierra match hollow points. You can see the edge on these is just, it's very abrasive. It looks like somebody just straight up drilled into a 9mm projectile and was like, fuck it, it's good. Obviously keeping my loaded mags over there, not putting anywhere near the pistol for any of the safety retards out there. But this pistol could feed those just fine, whereas I had 4 other 9 mils that I was trying to just burn through. I bought the ammo is cheap as fuck. Again, Ammo Inc. Sometimes it's hit, sometimes it's miss, but 9mm pistols that I took out with that ammunition, none of them wanted to feed. They just always got hung up. So I was fucking shocked when the polished feed ramp here just sloop, every single time. Little light negligent discharge there, but every single time fed just fine. So I was actually really impressed, with the fact that it could feed some piece of shit ammo. And then with the other varieties of ammo, Full Metal Jacket, 115, 124, 147. I've had a couple of 124 and 115 hollow point varieties kind of mixed in with a mixed bag of stuff. But it has been shockingly reliable. And of course, this whole video, I'm not making a statement as if this is just as good or better. I'm not. If anything, I'm trying to talk you out of it. It's not that it's a bad pistol. It will operate for you. It has worked perfectly fine for me. The trigger is a huge upgrade from the SD9VE. But again, looking at this on paper and, talking about these budget deals and stuff like that, I would definitely go with like a PSA dagger or even a used, Glock 19, just because of the parts supply, the magazine cost, all the holsters that are out there. I mean, because it's mass produced and there's all these different things, it's much cheaper to get into that, and that'll do you fine. I just kind of held off because if I got the PSA dagger, I knew I was going to want to change that hinge trigger to the flat face trigger, or the Glock, Gen 3 trigger. So it was like cost of that plus my time installing it, and I just wasn't in the mood, and this opportunity presented itself. So that's kind of, a long-winded explanation of why I went with this, and it's going to be adequate for me, but I don't know if I would suggest this for other people, just because in the long run, this is going to cost a lot more, and it's not going to yield anything better than those other ones. In fact, the trigger, this compared to like a Glock trigger is nowhere near as good as a standard factory Glock trigger, because it's just a little bit mushy. It is a good trigger, but just probably not my preferred one. If I had a choice, I would probably go with something like a Glock trigger, since the take-up's a lot less and it feels a little bit lighter. The factory SD9VE trigger pull weight is supposedly 7.6 pounds. However, it definitely fucking feels like 8 or 9. It's just that long, horrible trigger. Feels very stiff, like a double action trigger. This one is claimed to be about 6. With the mushiness, I believe that it is light, but there's again just this, before it actually engages, we got a little bit of play here, and then breaks at that back wall. So there's a little bit of mushiness, but it's nothing that while I was firing, I actually noticed that, irritated me. I was like, oh no, that's fine. That's fine. But other than that, that's kind of it for this pistol. There is a fantastic channel out there called Cranky Gun Reviews, and he has all 3 models of this pistol, and he actually has a very heartwarming message to his wife in the beginning, which I thought was pretty cool, man. A lot of times the gun channels are always like super tough and shit, but it was kind of dope to hear this guy, kind of talk about how much he loved his wife and stuff, just in this small little opening on his video. I thought that was really fucking cool. So and I'm sure a lot of other people in the comments did as well. It's just something that you don't typically see. A man who loves his wife, he's a happy dude. So, I respect the fuck out of that. And he had all 3 models to give a good example. So if you guys like listening to stuff while you work or while you clean your guns or what have you, I would definitely go to his channel. Again, that channel is the Cranky Gun Review gun channel. And yeah, go ahead and check it out. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. I don't check my channel often, except for when I upload stuff, and I will try to get back to any questions or comments. Just be cool. Don't be a dick. I'm getting sick and tired of seeing that. Not on my videos, but other videos where you just get some real retards out there, just spilling stuff all over people's comments. I would rather us just shoot the shit about gun, man. Let's just talk about stuff that's actually going to be worthwhile, or tell me about the projects you're working on, or what dumb endeavor you've taken upon, for your new gun purchase. Shit like that is what I like talking about all day, every day. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.